Culture Talk will be held by the co-founder of the Baza Umu School of Permaculture, Mr. Lucien Lisp. He will take you on a journey and teach you all the different possibilities that you can achieve with green living, green building, and working with nature and people. We hope that you enjoy the talk and hope that we'll see you again soon. Have a good evening.
Thank you. So hi everyone, and thank you for calling, for coming. Hi Christina. So we'll actually sit down, and you can watch the slides. I work here in London, and it's been a very busy January for me. So I did all my best to organize this presentation for you, so in the best possible way that I could in the limited time I had available, working 260 hours in January alone. So let's start. I will begin this talk with a short story so you get to know a little bit about my background, where I come from, and the type of macro ecosystem we are situated in. Basa Ulmo is in a mountainous foresty area that stretches across 20 miles. The forest is mainly fir, oak, and beech. Among these, you can find a great biodiversity of perennials such as walnut, hazelnut, wild apple, cornelian cherry, wild cherry, chestnuts, and so on. The community around us rely on the forest for income, firewood, and construction. Many families go out looking for mushrooms to sell, practice animal husbandry, and make excellent traditional spirits from plum, apple, cornelian cherry, and others. We call these spirits tsuika, and a liter of cornelian cherry would cost as much as 30 pounds per liter. Our apple trees were grafted on wild rootstock to ensure a long and prosperous yield. So you look at these pictures and think, wow, do people actually dress like this? Well, typically no, but when you come to visit, you realize it's pretty common in certain areas. Wise old country folk can tell a good story and teach you things about life and happiness from their secular perspective. So without further ado, I will begin, sit back, relax, and enjoy. At the end of this presentation, there will be a short Q&A, so please hold out your hands until then. Let's begin. Present times. Something like this could happen in a day in Maramuresh County. A couple walks through the woods to reach a 1600s wooden church. The view from up here is simply breathtaking, so they stand in awe for a while, thinking that the steep journey has paid off. Birds are flying past, providing the soundtrack of the forest, alongside the wind and leaves falling. The boys and girls are dressed by their mothers to get ready for dancing classes. Three goats, left unattended, wander off and find a haystack in the neighbor's pasture. They start to eat it copiously, making 10 pounds worth of damage. In the meantime, a bear finds an abandoned beehive in the deep forest. He starts to eat it whole, completely disregarding table manners. City families drive up to the vineyards to give a hand picking grapes for wine. They end up having a feast in the end, and the kids drink freshly squeezed grape juice, while the adults debate about the poor judgment of EU leaders in Brussels using profanity. The loudest in the group has never signed a petition in his life. A young kid is asking the wise old man if money will bring him happiness or doing the right thing will. I hope you know the answer to that. A French tourist takes a photo of a Maramuresh gate and walks away not realizing the sun was in front of him, rendering the photo useless. On his walk alongside the road, he meets a street vendor selling sweet onions by the string. They talk in a mixture of French, English, and signs. and the lady brings him a cup full of ice cold fresh water from the well. She gives him 2 apples for the road. The man expresses his gratitude and walks off. The National Permaculture Association team have just heard from children how much they already know about plants and were amazed. In the meantime, a middle-aged woman is parking her Jaguar in a pothole. Maramuresh is the kind of place that everybody loves. Deeply rooted in customs and tradition, the people are humble, wise, and calm. The highest point is 2,303 meters for those who like trekking. In the historical part, which is quite big, skilled craftsmen still know age-old ways of building houses. Some still wear their traditional clothes in festive seasons or traditional casual throughout the year. The people in the city of Baia Mare, which I grew up, commonly buy from the farmers' markets every day. However, more and more supermarkets appear with competing prices, but farmers' markets are still buzzing every day. Unfortunately, it's a tough living. Romania has over 500,000 hectares of registered organic operations. That's 3.5 times the size of Greater London. According to the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, organic farming is in a strong uptrend. The number of laying hens increased by 2,134% in 2012. However, out of almost 10 million hectares of arable land, only 174,000 are registered organic. Average organic farms are around 20 hectares in surface. Permaculture design can have a great impact by allowing people to stay on the land and make a living providing local products and services. More education and awareness is needed in order to get the information to them. I work here in London and meet university professors, local councillors, actors, and politicians, and many of them have already heard about permaculture design, and they are always open to learn more, even if for informational purposes only. There are other people who are actually doing this already in Romania, and the goal is to make it extremely well known at the national level. Plans and other projects, as well as designs, are in the making, and this template is becoming more and more understood and talked about. Among the people who live off the land in mountainous areas, common problems are drought in the summer, inefficient ways of watering a garden, and a distinct connection with distilled fruit spirits. In a study that looked at farmed land across the county, most mayors have said that land is rarely sold and people prefer to farm in order to get their subsidies. To me, this is simply an old way of thinking, and I'll tell you what, if you look at permaculture at its true potential, many people can benefit from community-supported agriculture, collaborate between themselves to create a regional network of small enterprises that can grow exponentially. I would do it now if I had the capital, and definitely will once I move back, with the consideration, of course, that a holistic approach is taken for the crops or animals. Another common problem is the desire for short-term gains like any job in the city that can provide basic food and housing, disregarding the opportunities they left behind. Minimum wage is still 6 to 7 pounds a day, while the food prices are whoa. Anyway, so like in the introduction, my name is Lucian, co-founder of Baza Olmu School of Permaculture. Together with my brother and his wife, Roxy, Baza Olmu was founded on the principle of free basic education or education in exchange for work or contribution. Our parents always give a hand and are very supportive. For that, I am very thankful. Our mission statement is to provide permaculture education and help make it widely accessible around the world. We want to offer a beyond sustainable approach and do our best to constantly improve our expertise and services. So why is a mission statement important? Well, it's the first thing that pops as important to a person that just finds out about your project or business. It will ultimately decide the amount of interest given by a viewer or reader. It can also help you see a more clear path in your goal. I currently live in London to save money in order to kickstart our project so we can make it our permanent residence. So what do I do for a living? I'm a hairdresser at an eco-style salon in central London, where 95 to 97% of the ingredients in our shampoos and conditioners come from plants, organic and ethically sourced oils, and recycled and 99% recyclable packaging materials. We recycle up to 80% of our waste while providing excellent hair service. It's going pretty well, and I must say that after 8 years of professional hairdressing, it's been one of my favorite jobs so far. I'll tell you how I work. With hair, I try my best and give 100% every single day. I study space geometry and anatomy to get a better understanding of how hair behaves and looks best. Trained at the best academies in the world and have experience in teaching and managing excellent salons in London. This is my background before permaculture. Anyway, this is how I work, and you should do the same. Give your best and get into a sector that provides you serious future planning. I'm telling you right now, if your current job will pay you the same in the next 5 years, you should seriously consider getting your priorities straight. Think long term and act now. Brick by brick, piece by piece, make your own road show. In the meantime, Baza Ulmo carries on without my physical presence, but always in touch. Right now, we are working with organizations, with organizing our website and collaborating with other architects and permaculture designers, NGOs and associations to promote and educate others throughout the county about Adobe building techniques. Our goal at the moment is to make Super Adobe a widespread affordable housing technique, either owner-builder, either with a dedicated construction team. Baza Ulmo is situated in Maramureș, north of Romania, Transylvania. It's an international school of permaculture where people can learn gardening skills, basic botany, farm planning and management, innovative eco-building such as Super Adobe, working with cob and roundwood, cordwood, rocket stoves, cooking from scratch, permaculture design, and making preserves sweet and savory. Hundreds of volunteers, students, and visitors from all around the world gave a hand and learned some valuable lessons. We do practical workshops in good weather and theory when it rains or it's too sunny. Volunteers from Helpex tend to be more project oriented and fans, while woofers are just a tiny bit more laid back. Remember, I was managing the place for a year. A while ago, I was talking to Tudor Petruțiu from the Permaculture Association, and he asked me how I feel about the volunteers, because other hosts were saying they don't put in a lot of efforts and some love the hammock way too much. And I told him a volunteer will only give you work and interest if he is highly motivated and entertained by the host. Make it special for them, tell a story, teach them something. Try to understand their culture and generation and give them real responsibilities. My approach is like a project manager. In the morning, I get up and start cooking breakfast for all. Once it's ready, I start beatboxing in the ocarina or the flute. I can tell you one thing for sure. I'm not a skilled musician, so I don't know if they wake up because of the noise or because it's eating time. But for me and them, it worked fine. After breakfast, I call for a meeting in which we discuss the daily tasks, how much we can expect to get done, spread out in teams, and say something inspiring. This way, everyone starts the day refreshed and positive that they're doing something meaningful. So we are at the edge of a very big forest. Once, a friend and fellow volunteer was sleeping outside on the terrace. And behind him there was this bear toddling along, looking to get into the root cellar. We have no fences in place, so this guy was sleeping, and he woke up because of the noise, briefly raised an eyebrow to see what's going on. Oh, there's this bear behind me. He's walking to the root cellar, back to sleep, nothing to do here. I actually saw the same bear the following morning, cautiously poking around. He wasn't big and probably just lost. I know what you're thinking. It's probably dangerous, but this doesn't happen every day, and we never had problems since. It's a non-issue. Bears don't just pop by, you see, but we were lucky actually to see one. The village is rustic on a mountainous landscape with around 70 families and a strong community sense. Everyone knows each other. It's one of those places that invented wireless distance communication from hill to hill by giving shoutouts. Mushrooms are plentiful, and some of the boys who were born there found 27 kilograms in one day. I mean, that's heavy right there. We string mushrooms above the stove, so we have them dried for winter. The gardens were established in 2013 in Hugel Terraces and Hugel Swales. Very low maintenance and very low watering only in the first year. But it's one of those things that you have to adapt and tweak from time to time in order to get it to work properly. Nowadays, we don't have to water our gardens. This is my neighbor with his friendly cow. So gardening. We use hugelkultur, and if you ask yourself why, because there are so many other ways of gardening, it's a very efficient way for us to garden because we are very busy with the constructions of two houses at the moment. It's mine and my brother's and his wife's. So we chose hugelkultur because we are in a mountainous area and we simply don't have time to water the garden, to go there and to dig and to till and to weed, and so we use hugel because it's, like I said, almost no watering, so we only water them in the first year, and heavy mulch helps a lot. So here you can see how it was built. Okay. We basically dug a trench, and on one side of the trench we put all the soil. In the soil went on heavy logs. It was reclaimed wood from the old house. There was a house where the current one is being built, but my neighbor came with a chainsaw, and he decided to take the walnut tree home. So so the tree fell on top of the old house. It was 180 years old. So it's very unfortunate, but you have to adapt with these things and try to make the most of it. So we decided to build a new one, a better one, which is earthquake proof. And we won't plant any walnuts near it. So that's the way, I guess. So in the trenches we placed some reclaimed wood from the old house. Everything was taken apart and recycled. And as you can see, in time we figured out that if we dug a swale in front of the hugel, then we actually gain more yield. So it helps us out a lot. This is how it looks like in the spring or just after a rain, and then the water doesn't really stay there for very long, something like a few hours. And all of this was done with the help of the community around us and with international volunteers. So here are some hugel terraces. We also try to experiment and try to understand how plants work, and where will it go well, where it doesn't go very well. These things you have to adapt. Because we're in a mountainous area, all the people around us work with animal husbandry. So they don't really garden much, and if they do, they're not terribly successful. So this is in our village, not in the whole county. So this is our way. We found that the hugel terraces didn't work so well as the hugelkultur beds. So I am very open to trying new things, and I'm the kind of person that experiments all the time. When I'm there, I always have some seeds around and sow them no deal in any way I can think of. So in the spring I placed some heavy mulch on an 8 by 4 meter plot, and after 3 months, when the grass has died back, I took out the mulch and simply added some extra compost. Some seeds were scattered: orange, radishes, calendula, poppy, cabbage, broccoli, pumpkin, and squash. The broccoli and cabbage did really well along with the orange, and sure, some of the seeds were wasted, but when you get to save your own seeds, you realize just how much one plant makes. This is a cool way to get to know the plants better and understand why they grow well in certain places with very minimal intrusion to the soil. It only reinforced my belief on what I've been studying for so long. I mean, plants want to grow, it's in their nature, and always remember that they are very adaptable, and one should think of plant as potential yield and a component of building soils from the ground up. My aunt and neighbor was visiting one day, and she passed through the upper garden. She suddenly stopped, grabbed her head, and shouted, "What kind of sorcery did you perform on this garden? How come everything is so lush? I'm running out of water soon because so much was put into watering mine, and now I couldn't believe the difference a well-designed food system has over the classic approach." Our neighbors also gave us positive feedback, and some even tried hugelkultur themselves. Of course, we always gave a hand to anyone interested in trying these practices. The root cellar, before I go there, I just want to say that on the layer of heavy mulch that I placed, and I never dug anything, just placed the mulch and then plant. So you can see here what grew. Okay, this doesn't go well in all areas, all zones, but you have to make the most out of the edge effect. So by the fence, I took out the mulch and I simply inserted my hand into the ground to see what happened in the meantime, and this is how deep my hand would simply fit in comfortably into the soil. So the decomposition of mulch and the creation of soil during these 3 months have actually generated this amount of penetrability. Okay. So the root cellar was there before us. Our grandmother used it while she was alive. It wasn't maintained, so the front wall collapsed, and that's how we found it. Adi, my brother, decided to rehabilitate it, so he built a super adobe front wall. He used earth bags and barbed wire, as you can see, and barbed wire. The roof structure is made out of wooden beams from the old house, treated with linseed oil. On top of that, he added some wooden panels and a mix of earth and lime as a buffer zone for the living roof. After the earth-lime mix, he used a double layer of hydroisolation foil and a living roof to make it functional. It's our very own fridge where we keep most of our food, preserves, wine, and spirits. One of our latest specialty is apple pumpkin jam, but the most interesting would be cornelian cherry jam. Just after I planted the green roof, one of our neighbors came to visit with his friendly cow, and of course, as you would expect, she went to check out the roof and started eating some of the fresh grass and flowers, and also made a mess, so at least she left there something valuable. The point of this is that the weight of the entire soil above it, plus one mature cow, and the structure holds with no problems. A very sturdy, well-designed structure, I must say. The air enters from the lower pipe and exits from the upper pipe, creating a constant airflow and keeping it dry. The temperature is also constant year-round, ranging from 12 to 16 degrees. The Super Adobe house is a low-cost, high-efficient ecological construction. My brother is the designer, and throughout the course of many years, he studied ecological constructions at a very fine detail. Andrei looks at shapes, sizes, and materials. He's the kind of person that can draw the most intricate rough sketch to explain how a design works, presenting different styles and ideas. With the right knowledge, from a piece of paper to completion, anything is possible. This is the project of my own house, which is from cordwood. It's currently being built. So the super adobe technique has been around for quite some time now. However, every building material combination needs to be properly tested at the research institute. This can take a while and may prove challenging, but we don't fret. Things are already moving, so the lookout will always be positive. By the way, I want to give a call to action to you if you have experience with registering and testing a building material or understand the implications. Here's a niche for you. Set it up, get it done in your country if it's not done already. In the UK, it's totally legit for certain projects and modules only. However, restrictions apply in housing. There are seven schools around Heathrow that commissioned Super Adobe domes for the playground from a company called Small Earth. Check them out, they're pretty cool. The ecodomes are built with a drainage channel and not a foundation. There is no need for one when you look at this type of construction. Rainwater percolates in the drainage and goes towards the greywater area slowly. So here, on these steps you can see how it was built, and my father helped us build throughout the construction because he's very good at these things, and my brother studied all the books and all the information needed to make sure that the design is proper. He also discussed with several architects, and the structure of the roof is thatched. We use water reed. We found it around 20 kilometers from where the house is. We found a huge field of reed, so we said, why not? It's a local resource. If it's built properly, it will last for around 70 years or so. So as you can see, the inside will be plastered, and right now all the electricity is installed. We'll have running water, and bathroom and everything. So it's pretty cool. And now so this year we almost finished with the construction of the roof and installed the windows. Because of the hydro-insulation foil that comes and there is no foundation but a drainage channel, we can burn the earth to garden. So we want some aromatic plants and something that smells nice when you open the window. So permaculture, the ethics of permaculture, as you may know, is earth care, people care, and share the surplus. So I want to talk briefly about some keynotes, which are, one of them is the dream. So I'm pretty sure many of you have thought about the dream, or many of you have had the dream to live free, to be sustainable, to be off the grid or somewhere in the wild where the society and the media and all the bad things that happen in the world will not reach you. So we also had this dream. We also wanted to be separate from the world, but sooner or later there comes a point when you realize that maybe you can find a way to help others while achieving your goals. So if you can manage to make a living, earn money, but also be off-grid and help others do the same, then you can make change happen. So we founded this school. We started with the idea, and then once we were on the land, we talked with several people and the villagers and the people nearby to get to network with them to see what's going on. And they told us that our grandfather, while he was alive, he helped build the first church in the village, and he helped build the first school in the village. So, maybe these things pass on through generations. I will also talk a little bit about swales. So, swales, the landscape can be non-linear, non-uniform, and You need to catch and store water efficiently into the land, so use it wisely and only where it's needed. You can make the earth works in such a way that not only water will stay on your land but also divert excess into a pond. In a grazing situation, however, it's not very clever to install swales as large herbivores can trample them and then you get water and mud mix all over your land, creating a mess. Any one system performs multiple functions, so you need to design in such a way that everything is interconnected to maximize yield and get the full benefit of any given situation. So, as you can see in this picture, behind me there is the forest, and which, like I said before, is oak, beech, birch, chestnut. So below it, on the slope, we plant our perennials. After the perennials, we garden. So it sort of comes down. You don't build your house on top. You sort of do it halfway. Building a house on top of a land is called a type 1 error. So, I would also like to say something else. So, about regenerative agriculture. Keep an eye out on the Regrarians group, and for those of you who follow Darren Doherty, he is coming in the UK this summer doing a course in Devon. And then restorative agriculture, Mark Shepard, read his books and listen to what he has to say. He recently gave a talk about his invitation in at COP21. You should listen to his talk. So, silvopasture is the practice of combining forestry and grazing of domesticated animals in a mutually beneficial way. Advantages of a properly managed silvopasture operation are enhanced soil production and increased long-term income due to the simultaneous production of trees and grazing. Coppice trees and nut trees are clever because you can have firewood and nuts at the same time. A little bit about agroforestry. So I was, doing research and looking for niches online and see where to look next. So in case we want to expand and to get some of the land nearby. So agroforestry, you can actually make a living and make a high yield income from walnut production. So right now there is more demand than the supply of walnuts. So now is the time to get a land, set up walnut forest, and go for it. Okay, so paddock shift systems. Imagine a mobile paddock that moves around across the field with animals inside. Each day, you would move said paddock by one size increment to reach a new spot. By constantly moving around the setup, the animals fertilize the soil just enough but never too much. This allows for continuous farming with added benefits to the environment, water, and food. They have a shorter lifespan. The animals have a shorter lifespan than you, so even a shorter maximum efficiency. So if you are into eggs production, let's say, after about a year and a half of a layer, your feeding costs can exceed the gains from eggs. You could always provide their food for free on a smaller operation if you think about it, but there will come a time when you have to cull a set of layers. So the full implication of any animal husbandry practices needs to be taken into account. When we look at our permaculture design, so my brother and his wife they're vegetarians, so we're not really focusing on that. We are focusing on other types. So it's a combination of all of these techniques that will make this work. Not a single one will be sufficient in order to get the ball rolling. So you've learned about all this and probably asking, what should I do? Well, you can always find a niche, do more research, and then expand on that. Work on your strengths as well as your weaknesses. You cannot possibly get to know everything. Focus on what you love and think of what can come easy as a skill and work on that. Your weaknesses are just as important. I will give you an example. The number one fear is public speaking. Try to put yourself in my shoes for a moment. How would it go? Try and experience your worst capabilities and be aware of them so you can slowly improve. The reason I spoke about public speaking is because we work with the media. They come to us because we're doing something for the public good. Talk about ideas worth spreading. So, whether it's publications online, newspapers, or even national television, there may come a time when it's your turn for the spotlight, so be prepared. This is not about your fame, but the way your message is sent out across into the world is just as important. Tone and body language, they are important. So, what does it take to become a permaculture designer? First off, learn as much as you possibly can about permaculture. You will find useful links after the presentation to help get you going. I will post them on the event. Read, watch, take notes, and visit other centers. A permaculture designer certificate course would be the next step. A PDC will give you a foundation from which you start your own designs. Each course is valuable in its own right, however, they will vary slightly, so some will be excellent while others simply good. Pay attention to this so you know what to expect. The best way is to do it for yourself and make it successful. Start with looking at the macro system, the geography of the landscape, type of soil, and potential problems. Once you've found potential problems, you need to find out how to turn these into opportunities and then plant your perennials. Trees take long to grow, so it will take even longer if you optimize your own varieties to work well in your areas. You can also optimize annuals like vegetables and so on by growing them in slightly more difficult situation, poorer soils, less water, or plant them early and so on, so you can save the seeds and from the ones that do well. Next year you do the same, and there you have it, your own variety of seeds that are adjusted to your conditions. You need to be able to provide a totally legit and efficient design from scratch to completion, so get your networking going. Make sure to offer guarantees depending on the level of involvement of your clients. Be honest about what you have to offer from the very beginning and always have a guide quote. You may need to do some free work in the beginning to get your name out into the world. Look into offering something else, but make sure you are ready to fulfill your promise to its fullest. Identify what is missing from your current knowledge and do your absolute best to get answers to each question that still puzzles you. Let your work speak for itself and start with a smaller project before you can comfortably take on a larger scale. Just like any field, you should be able to grow exponentially. Find contractors, builders, architects, skilled people that are ready to take on project-based work. Be reliable and available to your clients. Your contacts are one of the most important assets. Keep them close and get updates, whether it's new services provided or changing prices and that sort of thing. Invest in a regenerative enterprise of your own. With a long-term perspective, this can be very rewarding both financially and quality of life. Good things come for those who are patient. You can always hire someone to do the design for you. Learn from others, volunteer at a permaculture center, school, farm, association, or take a teaching class. Do some courses and get ready to acquire new skills. Get to know eco-building a little bit better by working with cob, straw bales, super adobe, cordwood, roundwood, not just for housing, but for other permanent and temporary structures such as a barn, hatchery, root cellar, terrace, and so on. Our work has been inspired by Nader Khalili, the Iranian architect who invented super adobe for NASA. Kaki Hunter and Donald Kiffmeyer, some of the best permaculture personalities in the world, such as Geoff Lawton, Sepp Holzer, Paul Wheaton, David Holmgren, Richard Perkins, Ben Falk, Mark Shepard, and so on. These people have dedicated their lives to designing our world for a better future and are still working on it. Permaculture Aid. Once you've set up your own home so that you can leave it for 2 or 3 months and it just gets better, so that you are free to travel, then you can go and teach other people. It's a quote from Bill Mollison. After you have experience and a PDC, you can sign up for an aid program with all expenses paid on a contract basis. You could help others where it's the most needed, places stricken by calamity, where daily life is a struggle and government funding is not enough. Or you can help by supporting others who are doing it already. Donate to a permaculture cause. Your gesture will be much appreciated. If the ultimate goal of permaculture is earth repair, it's my hope that all people will start to interact with the planet in a more respectful way. Earlier I talked about mission statements. So I want to ask you, what is yours? Have you thought about it? If you still don't know, I can give you some examples. I want to travel the world to learn from others how to live free. I want to write the best ever admission letter as a volunteer at my favorite permaculture education center. I want to invest in a community-supported agriculture scheme and start a co-op linking producers to consumers. Start a garden. Hire someone to do the design for me. Work with children to inspire a whole new generation. If you're a teacher, you could run or help with the school's garden. Try telling a kid there are people out there working on green designs on millions of hectares, or turning the harshest places on earth into an oasis. You could do that, and if you want to heal the planet, look into their eyes and see how they light up. It's also our responsibility as adults to pass on something worth sharing and inspire the next generation. Nowadays, you can even learn about permaculture design methodology online, so look out for open source PDCs and even get certified from home. Check out openpermaculture.com. With a slightly related university degree and a PDC at hand, look and apply for jobs at twitter.com/permijobs for the ones who are from the US, and then here in London, the Burgess Park is looking for a project coordinator for a 1-day week. You can also check out permaculture.org.uk. The UK Permaculture Association is hiring an event coordinator or farm manager and more. Kawanga with a K.org.nz, an apprenticeship role for a highly productive urban setting, a garden in New Zealand. Look for the opportunities, but also build your CV. So the question I have for you is, are you ready to be part of the revolution? Thank you all, and good luck and best good fortune. So we will begin a brief Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, stand up and speak up so I can hear you, and I will do my best to answer.